Welcome to Destiny. Now here's your host, Cliff Dunning.
We kind of have a question of the week here on Destiny, and that is, where do you go when you're not feeling well? Do you go to a Chinese medical doctor? Do you go to a chiropractor? Do you go to a naturopathic healing professional? For many people, those are all unusual and foreign names or terms for healers, and most of us go to our neighborhood allopath. Now, one of the things that I talk about occasionally on Destiny is the fact that allopathic medicine, corporate medicine, is big business. It is in the $250 billion a year category, far outstripping smaller companies in different industries. But one of the things that people forget when they go to the doctor is you're talking with a technician for the most part, somebody who does care about your wellness, but isn't really familiar with the fine arts of the body. And when I say fine arts, I'm talking about the electrical system, the fields of energy that surround us, the subtle functions of the organs. And when you go to a doctor and he says, well, you got high cholesterol, you have stomach issues, gastrointestinal problems, you are prescribed a drug. I mentioned this before. If you go to a doctor, he says you have high cholesterol, and you were to say to him, hey, doc, I know you're, saying that you want to give me a drug, but are there herbs? Are there teas? Are there other forms of therapy that are available? 9 times out of 10, they will not know what you're talking about, or they will not answer you and look at you funny. It's a rare private doc, somebody who works for themselves, who may understand naturopathic herbology and suggest something that can help you. Now, in the case of life-threatening illnesses or conditions, you may have to go on a drug therapy just to calm things down a little bit and get your body back into equilibrium. But what we're going to talk about today is somebody who actually had a life-threatening illness to the point where he was paralyzed from the waist down and had other compromising illnesses that kind of his condition even more complex. The thing that is fascinating about him is that in many cases, the therapies offered by the corporate doctors wasn't helpful. They may help to a certain degree, but the problem with our culture is that we want the quick fix. We don't want to be sick. We don't want to have flu symptoms. We don't want to have colds. We don't want to be sick. So the drug companies have stepped forward big time. And here we go again. Here's another industry that's in the billions of dollars because nobody wants to delay. No one wants to feel sick. So we have the quick fix with a drug. This is becoming such a huge problem. I mean, huge. That it's like there's a quick fix for everything. From leg twitching, there's a drug for that. I mean, the most subtle things, there's drugs for. And it's on TV, it's on the radio, it's on our podcast. Not my podcast, but other podcasts. How to fix your ills and discomforts. And this is a huge problem because we're masking the source of illness. And today we're going to hear about a gentleman who he healed himself from a debilitating disease that most people would give up on. And he could have spent his life in a wheelchair, not able really to function at all. But he used a natural system of healing to get through this horrific experience, and really is the poster child for looking beyond corporate medicine. So I'm not going to say corporate medicine is not bad, because I'll tell you what, They're wonderful, brilliant for finding out your problem. The diagnostic technology is superior in the United States and Europe, and it's really the real focus point for medical science. But the application of drugs and other methods of healing are not always helpful, and in many cases can cause more problems. I want you to hear a short program called Over Medicating America that came out of Johns Hopkins Medical Center, and this is from a prominent professor, an MD, who describes the state of American healthcare. And it's very telling on how you should approach corporate medicine.
America is sick and getting sicker by the moment. Is it any wonder then that healthcare costs continue to surge out of control, outpacing every other sector of the economy? Starbucks pays more for healthcare than it does for coffee beans. General Motors pays more for healthcare than it does for steel. 17 cents of every dollar spent in the U.S. goes to healthcare. That's 1/6 of all spending. 48% of all federal spending is related to healthcare. Not surprisingly, as of 2018, healthcare became the biggest business in the country. And the killer, literally, is that we're not getting healthier. Why is that? Complex question. But we can boil it down to two things. One, we don't pay enough attention to our own health. Strange, our health is our greatest asset, and yet we often abuse it. We eat food that doesn't nourish, avoid basic exercise, and ignore sleep. Two, we doctors don't pay enough attention to basic patient needs. The healthcare system rewards us for doing things to people, not for people. The result? A very expensive system to treat the most obese, medicated, comorbid population in the world. Let's look at these problems a little more closely. Obesity. According to data from the National Health and Nutrition Survey, 2 in 3 adults were considered to be overweight or obese. That was in 2014. This is a serious problem in and of itself. According to a CDC study of the COVID pandemic, 78% of hospitalizations were among those overweight or obese. Overmedicated. 10 years ago, we doctors prescribed 2.4 billion drugs. Last year, it was nearly 5 billion. Did disease really double in the last 10 years? No. It's just easier to push pills than to push real solutions. Comorbidity. Let's take type 2 diabetes as our example. It's been rising at an alarming rate, especially among young people. According to the CDC, new cases are increasing at a rate of 4.8% per year. This disease can lead to harmful and expensive complications like heart attacks, kidney dialysis, and even amputations. Two groups are unhappy with how we treat these conditions: patients and doctors. Surveys show rising levels of patient dissatisfaction with the medical care they're receiving, while other surveys reveal rising rates of physician burnout. So what does the future look like? More sickness, more procedures, and more pills at an ever-increasing cost? Well, if we keep doing the same things that we've been doing that haven't worked for the last 25 years, the answer is yes. But that's the very definition of insanity. We need to take a fresh approach. It will require the combined efforts of two groups, patients and doctors. The best way not to become a patient is to be healthy. Healthy people rarely need pills or expensive surgery. Over 75% of healthcare costs go to chronic diseases. As a doctor, I can tell you the hard part about chronic disease is not telling people what to do. It's helping them do it. That takes time. It's almost impossible to do in quick 10-minute office visits where doctors have to bill for everything they do. Again, the treatment of type 2 diabetes is an excellent example. It's a chronic disease for which people either take a medication or insulin injections. Yet most people with type 2 diabetes can come off their insulin simply by changing what they eat. When a disease can be cured by a lifestyle change, medication should be the last resort, not the first. This requires a partnership between doctor and patient. Both have to make a commitment to get to the underlying cause of disease rather than simply treat symptoms. Fortunately, there's a new wave of healthcare professionals who want to make this approach a reality. We're treating diabetes with cooking classes, not just insulin. We're treating more back pain with ice and stretching and physical therapy than just surgery alone. We're treating high blood pressure with healthy foods, yoga classes, stress management, and better sleep instead of just putting people on pills.
So that's from the horse's mouth, a physician from Johns Hopkins, and that's a prestigious medical institution. So that's pretty damning, and it's even more reason to begin looking at yourself, getting in touch with your body, and being your own best healthcare provider, knowing when you're ill, taking care of yourself, stopping what you're doing to rest and see why you're sick, and then address your illness as holistically as possible. Don't take drugs, don't suppress it, and understand what's going on. So we're going to hear from our guest today on just what he did, and it's kind of miraculous, actually, and it's a new type of healing that I think is growing. So today, supercharged self-healing.
Hey, kiddo, how was the hill? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, that ripping pow induces spontaneous joy.
The Icon Pass lets you do you at 50 destinations worldwide from $249 adult. Drop in for next winter now and save at iconpass.com.
With Cox Panoramic Wi-Fi, you get reliably fast Wi-Fi in every corner of your home. That's how my uncle, the ring announcer, explained it.
In this corner, you can rumble with the best online players. And in this corner of the basement, you can go the distance and binge watch an entire series.
How about this corner in the attic?
Oh yeah, even in this corner with the spiders!
Wi-Fi like a champ with wall-to-wall coverage from Cox Panoramic Wi-Fi. Speeds vary and are not guaranteed in certain cases. Panoramic Wi-Fi pods sold separately may be required for extended coverage. Restrictions apply.
From miraculous things to everyday things, Scripps Health is here for you. Our primary care doctors and specialists put our patients at the center of everything we do. For more than 100 years, San Diegans have relied on Scripps for personalized healthcare. Because we're here for good. To learn more, call 1-800-SCRIPPS or visit scripps.org.
We all hear about people recovering from devastating illnesses. Some cases are terminal. And through miracles, miraculous self-healings, they recover from terminal diagnoses. And in some cases, it's not even illnesses. They have been in a car crash and have been severely injured and seem to recover their ability to survive. My guest today contracted a lethal virus. It was a staph infection that caused him, among other illnesses, to lose the function of his lower body. This is a devastating story he tells in his new book. And we're going to hear how he basically recovered his wellness and was able to walk again. But not only that, really delved into a whole level of healing technique that is rarely discussed. The book I'm talking about is Supercharged Self-Healing, a revolutionary guide to access high-frequency states of consciousness that rejuvenate and repair. And my guest today is R.J. Spina. R.J., welcome to Destiny. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right. We got to start from the top. talk about your illness. What happened? A staph infection doesn't seem that serious to me, but obviously you had it in your spine to the point, with the other complications, that it left you somewhat disabled or seriously disabled. How did it happen?
Yeah, the doctors don't have a real answer to that. So I was diagnosed with sepsis. So I had septic shock, which can be lethal. People die from sepsis.
Right.
This particular strain, I was told that only 45 people had ever experienced what I've experienced, and I had a large abscess that actually formed on my spine that crushed my spine, which causes paralysis. Once the spine is actually damaged, there's no self-repair or self-healing mechanism within the spine itself. It's almost like a gelatinous substance, the spine, and as soon as you touch it, it's literally permanently damaged. That's why people who are paralyzed, they're paralyzed, and that's that. So my injury was between T7 and T8 of my spine, was a little higher up. It's almost like in the center of the chest, actually.
T being thoracic, the neck region.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I was permanently paralyzed from this abscess from the chest down, diagnosed and required emergency life-saving surgery with something called a laminectomy, which is where they literally scrape off the infection off the spine. And if I hadn't had that surgery, I'd certainly be dead. But I was paralyzed before the surgery, and I was obviously paralyzed after the surgery. And the neurosurgeon informed me maybe 18 hours after coming to from the surgery. He said, you should be okay now. Hopefully we got all the infection. He goes, but you're permanently paralyzed. There's nothing, you can't recover.
Let me stop you for just a second. How do they suspect you developed this infection?
No idea.
No idea. So, I mean, you weren't walking, you weren't in the water with amoeba or strange problematic microbes that you drank or something.
No, it literally, they have no idea how it started or where I got it from, I guess you could say. I was also paralyzed from the chest, permanent, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, permanently paralyzed from the chest down. Sepsis, obviously. I was diagnosed with, which was news to me, by the way, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's autoimmune disease.
Let me stop you there. That's another one you write about. Hashimoto, obviously a Japanese term. Is this originates in Japan? It's widely seen there. I mean, I've never heard of this before. What is that?
It's the name that they use for the sort of the general umbrella of autoimmune. So when you're so that's just the general umbrella.
But it was an autoimmune dysfunction.
Yeah, my body was attacking itself. It was quite severe. So along with the type 1 hypothyroidism, Hashimoto, I was also diagnosed with pancreatitis, thyroiditis, and then something called autonomic dysreflexia, which no fun. Autonomic dysreflexia affects your autonomic system. So part of your autonomic system is like
breathing and digestion and all that kind of stuff.
Heart rate, body temperature.
Oh my God.
So the stuff that obviously runs automatically, right? So hence autonomic. So when you have an injury above T6, by the way, many quadriplegics and paraplegics, such as myself, at the time, suffer from autonomic dysreflexia, and you can die from complications. You go into a coma. You can have a stroke. It's very serious, autonomic dysreflexia, and it's also a bizarre experience too that I'll just share with you, because you'll just be quote unquote sitting there, and you literally stop breathing. Your pulse can just plummet, or it can literally skyrocket. I remember one time my body temperature dropped about 4 or 5 degrees in like 2 minutes. And I started shaking and convulsing. I had trouble breathing. So it's almost like it's very similar to an ancient yogic practice to regain control of your heart rate, your pulse, your body temperature. And I had to learn that or remember that. on the fly, because there was 5 different trips to the ER that were quite serious. And
so this autonomic system was so severe that if you weren't thinking about breathing, you were basically shutting down, and all of a sudden you'd be like, so, wow,
yeah, the body stops those deep systems, heart rate, pulse, body temperature. They stop. They don't work because of the damage to the spine.
Yeah.
So to be able to regain control, it was real, literally, like I say, it's like a yogic practice. I had to remember or learn on the fly, which maybe is almost the same thing, but I had to regain control of breathing, body temperature, heart rate, pulse. And so that was part of the process. So there was that, all those chronic illnesses, as well as permanent paralysis from the chest down. It wasn't an optimal situation.
How long were you in the hospital for after your surgery?
I was in the hospital itself for about 10 days, and then I was transferred to the rehab. It's a large hospital here in San Diego.
Sure.
So about 10, 11 days in the actual hospital, and then transferred for about 2 months into the rehabilitation center. And the rehabilitation center is not a place that anyone goes to get better. I want to make that really clear. You go there so that when you get released, you're functional. So what they teach you is, like, they were teaching me how to put my socks on because I was paralyzed from the chest down, how to wheel my wheelchair to the sink so I could brush my teeth, how to maneuver my wheelchair in the kitchen so I could reach the stove and turn on the burners and things like that. So there's occupational therapy and physical therapy, but the point of being there is not healing. The point is so when they release you, you can function.
We're going to talk a little bit later about the medical models that we deal with today. But I want to ask you, obviously, they were thinking you're going to be stuck on a wheelchair forever. But having no feeling from the waist down, obviously, your arms were you able to move your arms. It's just you're not able to walk or feel anything from your chest down, right?
Yeah. So the mobility, I was incredibly weak from the sepsis.
Yeah.
I was my body was ravaged and nothing worked. But yeah, so I had no sensation or functionality from the chest down. But yeah, my arms were never affected by it.
And you're a young person. How old were you when this happened?
I'm probably a little older than I look. It happened in 2016. I was 45.
45. Okay.
That's
still young for that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the big question is, RJ, what was going on in your life at the time of this? What was happening to you? And we're going to talk a little bit about your younger life, but this is a devastating illness, a devastating situation where your life's turned upside down. But what was going on leading up to this illness? Can you kind of remember that?
Sure. Yeah. I started to this occurred April 23rd of 2016. I started to not feel well around Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I started to feel weak and tired. And what was most prominent as time went on was a mental fogginess. And I've been an avid meditator, which we'll get into even as a child. I got to the point that I couldn't meditate. And for me, that's almost like, for anyone who knows me, yeah, like
for me,
my natural state is literally meditation, to be clear-headed all the time. And so the sepsis was starting to take over, and so I started to feel worse and worse and worse. I checked myself into the ER 2 months prior to becoming paralyzed. So I felt so horrible that I was like, I just need to go to the ER. There's something really wrong with me. I don't know what it is, but I'm in trouble. So when I went to the ER, they said that I was in diabetic ketoacidosis. My blood sugar level was something like 400 or something like that. I have the medical records. I just don't remember. And that's when they told me, they're like, you're a type 1 diabetic. I'm like, I am? And they're like, oh yeah. I mean, you're in diabetic ketoacidosis. You also have this and this. You have sepsis. You have this. I had no idea. And my gut tells me that this infection that I got is what caused all these other illnesses, the hypothyroidism, the Hashimoto autoimmune disease, the all of a sudden I have diabetes.
Yeah.
So wherever I got this thing from, this bacteria, this virus, it destroyed my body. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. They put a stent in my arm because the antibiotic they were giving me was so strong. And I had to give it to myself every 8 hours. So I was there for about almost 2 weeks. They discharged me. I kept taking the antibiotic.
Oh,
it didn't work because lo and behold, I became paralyzed and was rushed for emergency surgery.
Okay, but let's talk just a little bit, RJ. You're self-aware, and obviously I'm of the belief, being a holistically minded person, that we create our reality, that things that we do can come back to haunt us. So I'm just curious, before we get into this wonderful healing technology that you talk about in your book, were you depressed? Was there something happening? I mentioned stepping in water because this is where some people get these weird infections and strange amoeba. But I mean, obviously that didn't happen. Was there something going on as you look back in your life? And maybe not, that was the impetus, was the beginning to trip the wire of this illness?
Yeah. So my understanding and my answer will be a little different, as is, what I've done and been able to achieve and understand is a little different.
Yeah.
So my last name is Spina, which means spine. Okay. So
which is kind of interesting.
Right. So it's upon and maybe going back to what I used to do as a child will start to maybe round this out and make more sense in that way. But I absolutely gave myself this challenge in this incarnation. So
okay.
I gave myself this name. I gave myself a challenge that would be worthy, that would require all of my focus, all of my dedication in order to transcend it. And so there wasn't really, people who know me, I joke around. I'm always upbeat, always happy. I am never depressed, never upset. I never have been. So this was something that was meant to be. And it's something that I set up, what we call our life plan, something that I set up to give myself a tremendous challenge so I could prove to myself that I could put myself back together and then offer these teachings, these higher consciousness teachings to others so they can do the same for themselves.
Before we get into this self-healing program that you developed, I want to talk a little bit about your childhood, because in the early part of the book, you had the ability to see what you call beyond the natural senses. And you had out-of-body travel. You would travel to different realms. It looks like you were also aware of other realities. Talk a little bit about your perception.
Yeah, exactly. So as a little kid, and I mean really a little kid, and so obviously without training or teaching or anything like that, when I would relax, just sit in a chair or just lie on the couch or whatever, I would just literally just pop right out of my body, and it wasn't an effort or thinking to do it. It would literally just happen, and so this was totally normal for me. I realize now how odd it is, but it was at the time, it was totally normal for me. So I would just all of a sudden be outside of my body, looking at my body. And in the beginning, when I would do this, and by the way, my parents told me that I was an out of control sleepwalker, which I also find interesting. But so I would leave my body. I'd be able to look at my body. Sometimes I was standing, my consciousness would be standing next to my body. I'd look at it. Sometimes I was on the ceiling. A couple of times I literally appeared on the roof of my parents' house and I could look down and see myself sleeping. But what I discovered is that I was pure spirit, and I knew this tangibly as a child. So I was never confused about quote unquote being human. I also discovered that my consciousness could go anywhere, that I wasn't bound by anything. And one of the first things I did was I wanted to go to outer space. So when I was out of my body, the first thing I did was I want to go, into the stars. And that's exactly what would happen. As soon as I set the intention to do that, my consciousness would jump almost like in this weird way, it's like if you took out a bunch of frames in a movie and you had one frame and then you went to 10 frames ahead and then 10 frames ahead, it wasn't a fluid thing. I'd be here, then here, then here. And so I started experiencing higher states of consciousness, literally different realities, different realms. And then I started to realize what I was experiencing was different frequencies and different dimensions. Mm-hmm. And I was, as a kid, I would interact with highly advanced beings. I would be able to communicate. It felt totally normal, felt totally like me. And even as a kid, I actually had a mantra, which is bizarre. And the mantra when I would travel is that I would say to myself, I retain all knowledge and wisdom contained within this realm. And I would say it over and over as a little kid. So
that's pretty trippy, dude.
Right. So
that's
I came
very trippy.
It is. So I came into this world, or this incarnation. I came into this incarnation very detached from the human experience. And I clearly set myself up to have, an advanced lifetime, or however you want to say that, to be able to understand these things and to be able to do them, not just understand them intellectually, but to be able to do them. So I started out that way. That is me. That only continued at 24. I started giving my clairsentience and clairvoyance got really enhanced at 24 through a specific meditation that I did. Mm-hmm. And so I started giving people past life readings.
Wow.
I stopped doing that actually pretty quickly because I realized I wasn't freeing their mind. They were making more identifications to more lifetimes. So I was like, well, this isn't really helping free humanity. So I'm just going to stop. But my abilities and clairsentience and clairvoyance kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then if you want to fast forward another 20 years from there, when I became deathly ill, when I woke up from emergency surgery, I always used to say as a kid, if I ever get sick, I'll heal myself. I used to say that. When I woke up from emergency surgery, the curtain had been pulled aside. I remembered, and that's the only way I can say it because it came back to me. I remembered how real healing, authentic self-healing, and self-realization or enlightenment, I remembered the metaphysics of how they work. And it's literally like the curtain had been pulled back. I see everything. I understand everything. And in the ICU, paralyzed from the chest down and really sick, I literally started to explain to the ICU nurse that I was going to put myself back together. I started explaining how I would do it. I even said in exactly 100 days, I'll walk unassisted. Now, all of this, as crazy as it sounds, is absolutely documented. There's a video on my website, on the homepage, that's time-stamped, and you can see me unparalyzing myself. I asked the physical therapists and the nurses to film me because I knew no one would believe this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have the MRI of my spine. You can see my destroyed spine. I have my surgeon's notes that say complete paraplegia pre-surgery, complete paraplegia post-surgery, and then the videos that are time-stamped of me moving my foot, then me moving my leg, then me trying to stand up, then me walking with a walker, then me walking with a cane, all the way to me hiking up a gigantic hill in the hills of Kauai.
Fantastic. A lot of people that have the sensitivity that you have and are having these out-of-body, multidimensional trips usually meet up with people that are usually identified as guides or support teams. Did you have anybody like that you met on the other side when you were doing these trips?
Yeah, I mean, I met up with what we would or what I will classify as highly advanced beings.
But I mean, somebody who's looking after RJ, like, dude, if you need me, I'm here to buzz me and I'll come down, kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Not like your higher self, but I mean, I'm something that you maybe met on another realm, and it's like, I'm here to help or something like that. Just curious to know.
Yeah. So for me, in this my whole situation is bizarre. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. But my understanding is that my guides and helpers, or what we call our guardian angels, they have the directive in this lifetime to sit on the sidelines, and I wanted to do everything myself. So, which is bizarre, but I just like challenges. So when I would interact with these beings, these were highly advanced beings.
Sure.
That are, you could think of them as saintly, you could think of them as masters. So I was interacting with that kind of level of being, and they would you could say, instruct me or talk to me, and we would communicate. And I seemed to understand, even as a kid, I seemed to understand what in the world they were, which is also bizarre, but I seemed to understand what they were talking about. And I had my mantra that I would retain all information and wisdom contained within this realm. Mm-hmm. And every time I would come back, it's literally, so to speak, I was smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. It's really wisdom, not intelligence. So I would interact with these beings that were operating at a supreme level. And that's who I would interact with. My guides and helpers, while I have them, as everyone does, apparently they're under a gag order. So I can just figure out how all of this works all on my own, as weird as that sounds.
That's so amazing, because I was thinking, we're talking about sacred science that the Hindus used, the pre-Diluvian people that are not around anymore. And they, that was their lifestyle, to focus on these higher wisdoms to live by. Yeah. And for some reason, the way you're describing your healing process, it was like, okay, stand aside. I'm going to put these practices into operation and go it on my own, which is, and you set yourself up for a real trip too.
Yeah.
Paralyzed from the waist down is nothing. It's not like you got a sting on your knee or you broke your leg or something.
No, I absolutely right. I wanted, and I really mean it. Like I said, my last name is Spina, which means spine. I wanted a worthy challenge. I wanted to really test myself, because I wanted to prove to myself, as I said as a little kid, if I ever get sick, I'll just heal myself. Mm-hmm. So this knowingness or talent or ability or gift, which is maybe all the same thing, actually, it was already there. And so I knew that if something ever occurred, I would be able to tap into it. And so I wanted to give myself a real challenge, a worthy challenge, because I wanted to prove to myself yet again that I could put myself back together no matter how damaged the body-mind is. And more importantly, share that. So it's tangible for people, because this is not theory. This is not a story. Mm-hmm. This has occurred, and what it is that I offer to people is the truth in terms of how self-healing actually works.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about your self-healing. You call it metaphysical higher consciousness healing. Talk a little bit about, give us just an overview, because we'll drill down a little bit later.
Sure. The fastest way that I can describe it is that when we're incarnate, we limit ourselves to what I call body consciousness. Body consciousness is just the five senses, the data that comes in, which is then forms the intellect. Okay. Mm-hmm. That is literally 0.003 of what's available in the quantum field. 0.003. Okay. So we understand nothing. Nothing. Okay?
When we incarnate physically, we understand nothing.
Into the lower frequencies of the physical universe. What we call the third dimension is actually the third frequency.
Okay.
So energy exists frequentially. Dimensions house frequencies. Okay. Energy doesn't exist dimensionally. It exists frequentially. So we're in the third frequency that bands together to form one thing that gives us the experience of height, weight, and width. And we call that three dimensions. So when we incarnate or reincarnate into the lower frequencies of the physical universe, we're going to where the energy is densest. There's nothing more solid than solid, right? So we are as far away as we possibly can be from where we actually originate. So because of this incarnation process, we lose consciousness. We lose the direct connection to what we are and where we come from. We wake up here, so to speak, with total amnesia. Mm-hmm. We don't know how we got here, what we're supposed to do, where we come from, or what the point is. Total amnesia. So the first mistake we make is that we identify ourselves with the suit that we're wearing, the body. So therefore, we reduce ourselves to what I call body consciousness. And that identification is the foundation of the false character that we create, what I call the ego mind identity. So now we have completely contracted our consciousness. We have completely limited our energy. And that is why we don't know how to self-heal. I have awakened myself to, you can call it self-realization or enlightenment or even what's beyond that. And I opened up my higher mind again to what I really am. All the information, all the remembering, all the metaphysics are right there. It's just like opening a book. It's just right there. And then all you have to do is avail yourself of it. And the book that I wrote is the book based upon what I'm able to perceive and understand through my own higher consciousness perspective.
Okay. No, we're going to talk about the details of the techniques in the book that you reveal to people. And then a little bit later, maybe one or two case studies. It sounds very abstract to a lot of people. I mean, I understand what you're talking about, but how do we move out of the meat suit, the physical, and tap into this? I mean, that's really a key.
Yeah. Meditation. Okay. Meditate. The self, what we really are, is meditation. Okay. The self comes before thought, comes before emotion, comes before the body, comes before incarnation. Okay. So the self is meditation. So the whole key to this is to let go of body consciousness and reside within the self. And the self is the higher consciousness. So we just simply have to learn how to shut down or turn off the ego mind identity limitation program that runs by thinking. So what is the remedy for thinking? Meditation. Now, there's been countless studies that prove that meditation literally repairs your DNA. It helps repair cells, proteins. This has been proven time and time again. So it's simple. It only stands to reason that more profound, deeper states of meditation only greatly enhance the efficacy of self-healing by an order of magnitude. So that's all I'm really doing or teaching is meditation in a much more profound and a much more powerful way. And this is what greatly enhances our self-healing and self-repair.
We're going to take a short break and we will return with our guest, RJ Spina, talking about his new book, Supercharge Self-Healing.
Well, tax season's here, folks, and you know...
Hi there.
Whoa, where'd you come from?
April here to tell you about the tax filing software from TaxAct.
Seriously, were you, hiding behind my desk?
Seriously, TaxAct makes it easy to get your maximum refund.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Switch to TaxAct today, and you can start for free.
Or, as we say in Radioland...
Subtle. TaxAct. File for less and get more.
See taxact.com for details.
Mondays just became Mondays. Mondays just got more exciting. Powerball now draws 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Play now.
Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Mondays just became Mondays. Mondays just got more exciting. Powerball now draws 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Play now.
Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
So today's guest is RJ Spina, who wrote a book called Supercharged Self-Healing. It's really a way to identify when you're not well and use new techniques to heal, to rejuvenate, and to align with your physical body. You know, people are listening to this and going, well, man, I have cancer. And they told me that if I don't follow this protocol, I'll be dead, or I have severe rheumatoid arthritis, or one of these degenerative diseases that are so prevalent in Western culture. I'm afraid. And my doctor said is if I don't follow this program, I'll die. And this has happened to me personally. My younger brother had a period where he had what appeared to be a very lethal form of leukemia. And they dosed him with radiation and he lived, but he's paying for it now with all kinds of benign tumors coming up in his body. So it's like a nightmare. But what do you tell somebody who's been given this diagnosis, how to move beyond the medical model, how to begin what you call self-healing?
Well, we create our reality. Okay. Now, if we actually, let me say it this way. This will be a little more tangible for people. We tell our body mind what to do all the time, right? Get up, go to work, get changed, do this, do that. So we're always telling the body mind what to do all the time. We do it all day. Okay. Somehow we've lost the understanding that we can tell the body what to do in terms of healing. Now, through meditation, anyone can do this. Okay. If what we really are, you can use the word soul, consciousness, energy, I don't care. What we really are is in charge of the body mind. If you don't take over, if spirit doesn't take over, you will become a victim to your genetics. And then therefore, whatever issues the body has, you're going to be a victim to them.
Yeah.
If you take control of the body-mind complex, just as that book lays out to do, if you take control of the body-mind complex, then you are no longer a slave to genetics or hereditary. I'm diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and I don't take any insulin. That's supposed to be impossible. No, it's not. No, it isn't. This requires a different understanding, different exercises, you get different results. So understand that what we are, the soul, the spirit, the consciousness, the energy, that is what can take command and have dominion over the body-mind when you do it properly through meditation. So it doesn't matter what the genetics are, the hereditary traits are. If you take over, you have dominion over the body-mind, and I'm living proof of this.
It's kind of amazing. At one point in your healing, your health practitioner said, this is how I'm going to quote, your rib cage will snap if you continue exerting yourself. And your reply is, or was, I'm willing to break everything in order to put myself back together. That's pretty ballsy. I mean, you must have known something. When was the aha moment in your healing where you're like, okay, this is a test. You know, I'm ready to do this, and everybody stand back. I'm going to show you how it's done.
Yeah. There's a lot
That's
of truth.
pretty ballsy, man. Talk a little bit about that because, you know, I had a friend years ago that he broke something in his ribs, and he had some kind of condition that made his rib cage fragile. So they put something in there like the support. He was never the same.
Yeah, the best way I can answer that, when I woke up from emergency life-saving surgery, I had also awakened. I don't want to say fully because there's no such thing.
Yeah.
But there are states of consciousness and incarnations. There are many things that exist beyond enlightenment. And I'm going to be writing about some of those things. So self-mastery is one of those things that exists beyond enlightenment. So when I woke up from emergency surgery, as I said, the veil, the curtain had been pulled back. I absolutely knew that I would put myself back together. I even used to say it as a kid. So to speak to your statement about when I was told, because I was pushing my body way past ordinary limitations, right? Well, my mind was operating differently as well. So I was making my body do things that, you know, everyone was like, RJ, slow down, buddy. What are you doing? Right? Yeah. Now, the will that is needed to put yourself back together is often not experienced in this realm. So I knew what it took to put my body back together, and I didn't care how much it hurt, how long it took, what was going to break. I could care less. So that quote is what the mindset of total victory looks like. I didn't care the cost. My will is unbreakable. So is yours. I just know it tangibly for myself. So I was so attuned to myself, I could care less what was going to happen to my body mind. I was willing to break everything in order to put it back together properly.
So you shifted into this healing mode is basically what it sounds like. And the healing mode, even though you couldn't consciously talk about it, it's like, okay, I need to move to this level to get the healing that I needed. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, that's part of it. I was definitely carried. I was in a state of grace. I was literally, believe it or not, beyond enlightenment. There were things that were going on, which I'm going to write about. There's future books about that. Okay. I knew what it would take. And part of what it took is a will that is unbreakable. And I didn't care what was going on with my body and mind. And I really meant it when I said it. I would have broken everything to put it back together properly. My body was already destroyed. So I didn't really care. The levels of pain that I was experiencing were extraordinary. They were absolutely extraordinary. I didn't know levels of pain existed in terms of spinal damage. I mean, it was unbelievable. You literally just want to start screaming, literally, right? So I had to detach from the body-mind complex. It was the only way to transcend this. So I experienced levels of pain, but I didn't suffer. And that's very important for people to understand. I still experience pain, obviously not like before, but I still experience pain. But even then, excruciating levels of pain, I did not suffer because I did not identify with it. It was simply a bodily sensation. And at a certain level of consciousness and detachment, pain and pleasure are simply registered as bodily sensations, and you don't pay much attention to them.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about the healing technique that you developed. You call it Ascend the Frequency Healing Technique, or ATFHT. Give us a highlight, because, I mean, obviously the book is packed with the techniques and the modalities, but is this the language that is downloaded to you from your soul or whatever? And these are the components of the healing.
Yeah. So the body, mind, okay, is attuned to and part of the lower frequencies. Okay, so our suit, right, is consisted of lower frequencies. Now, in order to put low frequency disharmony back together, you have to access high frequency or intelligent energy and imbue that high frequency, powerful healing energy into the damaged lower frequency physical body. So that's the basic understanding of it. You do that very easily through meditation and through harnessing energy through your crown chakra. So higher frequency energy harmonizes and heals lower frequency disharmony. And an easy way to, as an analogy, you walk into a room, let's say everyone's angry and there's a whole bunch of hostility, so to speak, right? And then a very calm person walks in, right? And just tells, everybody calm down, relax, right? And then all of a sudden you feel the difference in the energy, right? All of a sudden the energy just changes. It's the same thing. Through meditation, we can go to this higher state of consciousness because we are the higher mind. We're not the bodysuit. So we go to what we really are, our higher mind. And whatever conceptualized reality that we create for ourselves, the body has the tangible experience of that. So I was creating an incredibly expansive state of consciousness, and my body had no choice but to start to repair itself because that was the conceptualized reality that I had created for myself.
I want to get into a little more of this technique, but something that you talk about, I thought about in the past when I've been ill, which is you call it surrendering to the full potential of healing. Talk a little bit about that, because that's an amazing statement. You surrender and you say, okay, I have this illness. What is surrendering? Tell me.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Let me give an example in terms of pain, because that might be a little more tangible for people, because we all know what pain feels like, right? Okay. Our natural reaction to pain is to brace ourselves and to resist. Okay. That's our natural reaction, is we tense up. Okay. That creates resistance. That actually makes the pain worse. Okay. Most people now know this, but it's a reaction, right? Okay. So if we approach it completely differently, if we approach it from a higher mind perspective, what I learned to do is when pain would kick in, and it would kick in, I would surrender I would relax even more. I would create no resistance whatsoever to the bodily sensation. Now, as I surrendered and relaxed, what happens, and everyone who's listening, try this. Go almost like you're falling deeper into yourself. Don't do anything about the pain. Surrender. Don't fight. Don't fight. Relax. Relax. Let yourself almost fall deeper into your body. Now, what will start to happen is you'll start to experience space between you and the pain, between you and the body. You are literally creating some space. Automatically, the pain starts to drop down. Then the next thing that we do is imagine what it feels like. Tangibly, imagine what it feels like to be completely hollow, like a balloon. Nothing inside you. Empty. No bones, no blood, no nothing. Imagine what that feels like. If you imagine tangibly what it's like to be hollow, watch what happens to pain. It disappears. Now, this is the opposite. And I realize this because I went, everything I talk about is what I've done and what I do and what I've taught people. I know what it's like to experience great pain, tremendous pain. The natural reaction is to brace for it. I get it.
Right.
That's not the answer. I know it's the natural reaction. I know this. But the answer is not that. The answer is not to use your lower consciousness or the reactionary paradigm of reacting to it, but to actually sink deeper into surrender, and your higher mind starts to open up. When your higher mind opens up, you will begin to realize that whatever reality you create for yourself, the body must have the tangible experience of that. The body needs the mind. So if you create an expanded state of consciousness, even while going through pain, and do exactly what I just said, the body must have the tangible experience of your state of consciousness. The pain literally disappears. If you tangibly imagine what it feels like to be empty, the body has to have that experience. Think about when you're dreaming and you're having a dream and you experience all these things going on. Your body's not moving. You're sitting in your bed, or lying in your bed, I should say. But your body is having the tangible experience of whatever's happening in your dream, right? You're going through the whole thing.
Right.
Because of the reality that's happening within your mind.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of this is part of the paradigm shift, why this work is so important. Most of us know that we make ourselves sick by being stressed out. The opposite is also true. By operating with an expanded state of consciousness, and what I'm talking about, the way the book lays out, your body has to have that tangible experience. It has to start repairing itself. It's that simple.
It sounds like you're stating that the body will naturally go back to health if you leave it alone and stop the noise.
Yeah, there's a lot, absolutely. And then when we have real challenges, the cancers, the diabetes, the paralysis, and lots of other things. So it's not it's not enough to stop the noise, because that's the starting line. So in other words, when we stop the noise through meditation, the disharmony no longer has any energy to continue to run. It's like unplugging a light from the wall socket. There's no energy going through. So now the light goes off. Mm-hmm. So if you stop thinking through meditation, there's no energetic momentum for your disharmony anymore. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, everything, you just hit the pause button. Okay. Now, dependent upon our level of disharmony, our sickness or disease, we're going to need to do things to bring in intelligent energy, to bring in higher frequency energy, to repair the body of energy and physical body. But the key is to stop, put the pause button on, and then start doing these exercises. And by bringing in more powerful, high frequency energy, there's nothing can happen other than your own self-repair and self-healing.
This is definitely vibrational self-healing. You've talked about meditation and suspending the noise. Give us another example of ascend the frequency healing technique?
There's a meditation, and there's many meditations in there, and the book will also teach people to meditate in 1 second.
Really?
Yeah, it's easy. We can do one right now. Pretend that you just arrived here. No past, no future.
That's the meditation?
Can you think?
Yeah.
With no past and no future?
No.
Right.
It's like there's voices in my head.
Right. So you cannot think without a past or a future. Because that's what thinking is.
Right.
Right. So if you pretend that you just arrived here, no past, no future.
Oh, like a young yeah. Okay. So how do you so you're closing your eyes.
You don't even have to.
Oh, you can keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
I have no past or future.
You just arrived here. Pretend you're a time traveler.
Uh-huh.
You just got here. No past, no future. You just arrived. You can't think.
That's different, I should say.
This is magic. So thinking is the movement of past and future, past and future, past and future. If you remove the mental concepts of past and future, you actually cannot think. Because thinking is the movement of the past that gets projected into a so-called future. So if you pretend that you just arrived here, literally, you just got here, no past, no future, the mind just goes blank. It's instant meditation. You literally can't think without a past or a future. That's what thinking is. So to override that, pretend you just arrived here, no past, no future.
And so how long do you do that? You sit and you're the new person, no past, no future. You do it as long as what? The voices come in and just say, hey, you got to get up and go do something.
So and I realize I realize what I talk about is different, but I promise you, this is an old teaching. I've been teaching this forever, and this will become very commonplace again. Okay. So when people say, okay, no past, oh, that's cool. I'm not thinking. Stay that way. Just stay that way. This is really profound, and let me explain why it's so profound. We've been talking about things on a fairly high level, right? You've understood every word I've said without thinking. Just sit with that for 1 second, because that is so profound. You have understood every word I've said without thinking.
Right.
Connectivity, communion, and understanding happens when you don't think. That's number one. This is a huge paradigm shift, just that alone. And I'm going to add to it because I hear all the time, RJ, I have such a busy life. If I don't think about all the stuff I got to get done, okay, I get it. I got a busy life too. I get it. I'm going to prove right now that that's total nonsense. I'm going to prove it. Your entire life is memorized. You see a glass. I'm using a visual prop. You see a glass. You know how to drink from it. You see a chair. You know how to sit. You get in your car. You know how to drive. You know how to wash yourself, feed yourself, clothe yourself. You know where everything is. Your entire life is already memorized. That's the subconscious mind. There's nothing to think about. Nothing. Okay? This is a massive epiphany for human beings.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay. So understanding and connection happens when you don't think, and your entire life is memorized. So now, when we start to work with this as the context, what in the world are we thinking about? And why? What for? It's fear. It's fear of just not being present. To just be here fully now. Pretend you just arrived here. No past, no future. This is the key. What I just said, what we're just talking about, is so massively important that it'll hit everyone more and more the more they start to ponder this and work with this. You're going to be like, oh my God, that's absolutely right. We are free. Our only bondage is not realizing it. This is part of what self-realization or enlightenment or even what exists beyond it is part of this understanding. To be this way. This is how you're able to put your body back together. And by the way, this is how you can achieve anything in life. You have to disengage and realize the truth. We waste all our energy in thinking.
Disengage from the daily activities, the noise,
the entertainment of them.
Okay, yeah, the addiction of the entertainment.
That's it. It's life is going to go on, right? The news will go on, the stuff, the wife, the son, the daughter, the husband. Life is going to go on. How much energy do you want to leak in terms of thinking and emotionalizing over it when you don't have to? Just be present and enjoy your life. Enjoy your friends. Enjoy your family by being present. No thinking. It's not needed at all. And for those I know in this situation, might I be able to look into my eyes? Do I even look like I'm thinking? This understanding has nothing to do with thought.
You do have an issue in the book that I see, and this is something I brought up in the very beginning, which is managing self-care. In other words, when we're ill, when we have these problems, you had a devastating physical issue. Fear comes up, the unknown comes up, and we turn to medicine for the quick fix. This is where drugs, the pharmacological industry comes into play. When we have a cold or the flu or an ache or a pain, we take a drug. We mask the ability to identify the illness. And when we mask it, in many cases, it goes deeper and it becomes something worse. And then we mask that. It becomes worse. Then all of a sudden, we have cancer or degenerative disease. And it's like, if you don't have this major operation, a radiation, drug therapy, you are going to die. Talk about that. This is our society we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the money. So I'm just going to add a caveat to that. Okay. My understanding from an altered state of consciousness, when you lose your mind, you lose your mind. Okay. So what I've noticed in terms of my ability to log into someone energetically. Okay. Once a sickness or disease is so deeply embedded within the gross physical body, sometimes it actually does require an invasive treatment. Okay, so I've had people come to me, tons of people with cancer, this and that, and they're much better. Some people have come to me and said, RJ, I need you. I said, listen, you need radiation. It's deeply embedded enough that you
they waited too long, so it's locked in.
You got it. Okay. Yeah. Now, believe it or not, my experience is those cases are few and far between. So I've worked with tons of people that have every kind of illness, you name it. It doesn't really matter what it is because all of it is just a temporary experience, including my paralysis. It's just temporary. So if we work with ourselves properly, we are so powerful. We create the reality, just as I was explaining. We become disempowered by relying on something outside of the self. The self, what you are, is whole and complete as it is. It's a fractal of God. It's not lacking anything. It's only your belief in that you're lacking something, that you need something outside of yourself, which perpetuates a cycle of disempowerment. And just like you said, it starts with this, and then this gets worse, and then you need something for that, and then that gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Listen, from now on, when we see a sign that says dead end, right? Do we have to drive all the way to the end to know, there's nothing here. It's a dead end. How about we just see the sign and then don't bother going down there and try something else, right? Okay, so let's do that in terms of working with ourselves. Our higher mind can do anything. Our higher mind can do anything. And when we start to access it, these stories about what I've done and all the clients that I've helped, this is going to be normal. But it's going to take detachment from your ego mind. Everything that you have think is real is just a thought. That's all it is. It's just a thought. And that thought becomes heavier and heavier by the belief that you give it. And then all of a sudden, it has complete dominion over your consciousness. And you actually think you can't get better because you believed in that thought so much. It's just a thought. That's all it is. And what you are is more than all the thoughts that have ever been created. You're more than all of those things put together. You come before it. So we have to give ourselves permission to heal. Give yourself permission to heal. Your doctor might not give it to you, or your chiropractor, or your wife, or your husband, or whoever. Give yourself permission to heal. It is within all of us. Just like the tree is in the seedling. Your healing is within you. It is not outside of you. In fact, nothing is outside of you. Nothing.
The book's called Supercharged Self-Healing. My guest today has been RJ Spina. Give us your website where people can learn more about your work.
Sure. It's my website is ascendthefrequencies.com. Ascendthefrequencies.com. Same with the YouTube channel, Instagram, Ascend the Frequencies 12. The book Supercharge is available. It's already in its second printing, so thank you everybody who bought it.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, it literally sold out in 3 weeks after it was released, but it's back in stock. It's revolutionary. Get it. The book, from my perspective, should be taught everywhere all over the world, because this is the key that you need. You need to empower yourself, and then you need the proper exercises and protocols that yield tangible results.
I want to have you back, RJ, because I want to talk about fasting. It's fascinating. We don't have time right now. And also, when your next book comes out, definitely let's get you back on. So, Supercharged Self-Healing. I really want to check out your website to see those stages of healing that you went through. That must have been – that's smart that you actually had yourself filmed. I know a lot of people would say, hey, I don't want someone to film me as a crippled individual. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, for me, like I said, the knowingness, I knew the moment I woke up that I was going to walk. I explained it. I said within 100 days. So, and I also knew that no one would believe me, that this was actually true, that I literally put myself back together. So in the video, it's right on the homepage. In the video, there's you see an MRI on my spine. It's a mess. You also see the surgeon's notes. It's an actual photograph of my surgeon's notes, pre and post surgery. It says complete paraplegia. And then all the snippets of those videos, it's only like a 3-minute video, but there's all these different clips and they're all time stamped. And you can literally see me moving my foot, moving my leg, almost getting up onto my feet, then getting up onto my feet, and then walking with a walker, and then walking with a cane, and then not walking with anything, and then hiking up a mountain. So it's all there because I wanted people to see that this is real and that they can do it too.
RJ, a real pleasure. We'll have to have you back. Take care.
Thank you very much for having me. I would love that.